Hello and welcome to Contramundum. I am Andrew Isker and this is CJ Engel. And today we are going to be talking about Stephen Wolfe's talk about multiculturalism and Anglo-Protestant America. CJ and I got to watch that live in person in Ogden a couple weeks ago, and now it's making the rounds. Now it's live, and also Ron Dodson will be joining us. So let's see here. Oh, here he is. Let's add him. There he is. Hello, Ron. How are you, man?
What's going on, boys? How
It
are
is
you?
sunny in Texas. Look at you.
I know. Looking tan.
You almost look like that. You almost look, I don't know if you saw the picture that was going around online of Glenn Beck, and he was like beet red, but his hair, is very white.
Oh man, you're gonna do.
You look way better than Glenn Beck, Ron. That's I'm saying. Like you look way better than him.
Can we reboot?
Yeah, you're much more bronze and golden.
You should.
I got the George Hamilton look, but that's a dated reference from the 70s.
That's an old head reference. I have no idea. You could have said anything.
I'm just going to drink my coffee and recover from the Glenn Beck-ification.
Yeah, he's like, well, I just joined. Now I'm leaving.
You should, Ron, you should see how we treat our other guests.
Oh, well.
We're getting it easy.
That's right. That's right. Well, I think we should just jump right in with Stephen's talk here. So I don't know, Ron, I don't think you've seen it yet, have you?
Which you know what? I don't even know what we're talking about today. It's not the Vikings.
Not today. That's going to be another episode. No, we're talking about Stephen Wolfe's talk that he gave in Ogden that people are losing their minds over right now. So
okay. No, I haven't had a chance to.
Good,
the last Stephen talk was with Chase and all those other guys. So I haven't seen this latest one.
Okay. Well, let me share this one here, and I'm getting good at this. There we go. All right. Well, I'll just click play. Actually, Stephen's a great talker, but let's do 1.5 speed because we're pressed for time today. All right.
Rigney and Joel Webbin, great professors of great universities and YouTubers and pastors. I'm not any of those things. I'm really a guy who lives out in the woods. Don't have any of those special fancy titles. But I am a father, and I want my children to live in a Christian nation. So I am thankful for all of you for being here, for listening to me talk, and being patient with. I guess I give detailed definitions. That's what Joe Rigney said. But again, thank you for being here. So nothing about our thinking on ethnicity is normal. We Westerners are weird. We are unlike the rest of the world. Most people around the world, whether Christian or not, have a distinct people, some group to which they strongly belong, which has outgroups and often enemies. The strong feeling of peoplehood is true for a significant portion of those who even make their living in the United States, whose bodies are in the US, but whose hearts remain in Mexico or Africa or the Vatican or the Levant. A nation.
So, even before we get going, have you seen, CJ, much of the commentary online in wake of this talk?
I saw some screenshots of the hysterics, but I haven't seen anything more detailed than that.
Yeah, so I mean, the one that really caught my ire was Scott Aniol. He I think quote tweeted Lizzie Marbach, who shared Stephen's talk, and was just going on about how we don't have a people or place, and that's good because heaven is our home, right? We have a heavenly Jerusalem. That's our home.
Yeah.
What do you think about that, Ron?
Well, I have seen this talk, and I don't understand why people are losing their minds over it. I can understand how you might have some quibbles with it or points of different emphasis. I'll even play spoiler to you guys today. I'll do that if you like. But this is the whole response that, and I saw this from Scott, that we're citizens of heaven, yet that's language in the New Testament that is Rome versus colonies kind of. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. A citizen of Philippi was a citizen of Philippi. He just might be a Roman citizen, and that's just such a middle school retort to what
Yeah.
Stephen is getting at here.
Yeah.
We're called as nations to honor God, and there is a particular glory in that. Again, we can quibble about who belongs in what nation, what constitutes an American, and all that kind of thing. But the baseline reality of this is just Bible. It's just New Testament scripture. Sorry, thank you.
No, that's just it. And like the whole thing, I mean, it always goes back to, and this is something CJ says and I say and we all say all the time, is grace does not destroy nature. Right? Grace does not destroy nature. God made us who we are. We come from particular families. We come from particular places and ways of life. And becoming a Christian doesn't destroy that. Doesn't make you not American anymore.
But Andrew,
whatever you are.
aren't you supposed to hate your mother and father?
Yeah,
and your brother
exactly.
And sister?
Yeah, they always go to that, right? They always go to that. It's like, or you're not worthy of me. And it's like, is that what Jesus is teaching, right? Is he teaching explicitly this rejection of the fifth commandment, right? That's what the Pharisees would accuse him of saying there.
Mm-hmm.
And of course he's not, right? He's saying that when the two are in conflict, right? When your father,
He's the
mother,
greater
sister,
loyalty.
brother, his loyalty to him matters more, right? But
that's right.
My being an American and my being a member of the Isker family and my father's son, right? There's no divided loyalty there between me and being a Christian. And I mean, the same with all of you. And so so then to say you should hate your father, because there is no ethnicity, right? There's no male nor female, Jew or Greek. That's just nonsense. It's like you said, Ron. It's childish. It's like middle school level theology, and these guys, right? I used to have a great deal of respect for them, and I still do for some of the things they say, of course. But with this, they are so immature. I mean, they got to know better. Right? They've got to know better than this.
Well, it creates, I think the immaturity comes from the inability to live in tension. And this side of the eschaton, there are tensions. There are. Jesus doesn't wipe away every tension that we live in. He makes us able to deal with those. And I was going to ask CJ, because CJ, you're so well read in the scholastics. How did the Reformed scholastics deal with this hierarchy of loyalties?
I'm actually not.
That's what we're dealing with, right?
Scholastics. But yes,
we need Stephen for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you're more well read than me. I'll put it that way. I'm a biblical theology guy, not a systematics guy, really at all. So
yeah, I really, the more I do learn, and obviously it's a lifetime of learning, but the more I do look into it, there's never been this wholesale rejection of nature. I mean, that phrase it's so perfectly encapsulates the distinction between the ethos of the age, like the regime evangelical instinct and its Anabaptist roots. It so well counters and confronts that instinct that we have today, that we are born of a people, and that this is not something that we have to suddenly come into our Christian salvation and then reject. We can continue on. We have a variety of obligations and relations and these things that bind us to other people outside of the specific kingdom of Christ and the invisible church. There is these two kingdoms, and it's important to emphasize the fact that we have obligations to our grandparents and our great-grandparents and our ancestors, and then our posterity and people that come after us. And these are relations that bind us, and we are to honor them, and we are to fight on behalf of their well-being and their integrity over generations. And these are things that are born of nature. That's what it means for and when grace comes along, it reinforces that, and it helps us to push in that direction. It doesn't destroy it. It doesn't eradicate or sever us from our past. Jesus was not a sociological revolutionary. He wanted people to respect their ways of life. And this is something that you see in Paul, and this is something that you see his pastoral advice being given to Timothy and Titus, and everywhere throughout the New Testament. There are they're like the family unit. And outside of that, the community. And Paul talks about himself, not only as a Roman citizen, but also as a Jew. And the Jews as a people are not the kingdom of God, but they are still precious to Paul because that is his natural.
Because those are his
timing, that is
people.
natural
That's his
obligation,
family.
that's his people.
Yeah.
So yes, I mean, and the thing of it is, Paul's reflecting something prior to the New Testament. He's reflecting something that's built into humanity. God created us as people, and he created us to honor those obligations that he created.
So I love this. When you were talking about we honor our forefathers, our grandparents, and we honor our children and grandchildren, we reject the fascism of the living. We see a beautiful continuation of generations that is tied together, and what ties it together. I mean, this is so uncomfortable for some folks, because I think we think that Jesus comes and everything is immanentized. Everything is the eternal now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
So that's why I call it evangelical Jacobinism, because that's their mentality is to liquidate all that came before.
we're gonna have new calendars and new clocks, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Seriously,
that's good.
And they don't care about the things that shape us as a people, distinct from our salvific community.
And what's important about those distinctions is it builds high trust, because it's commonality of place and experience. And you cannot, again, this side and maybe the other side of the eschaton, you can't get away from that. I can't be all when Paul says, this isn't what Paul is talking about when he says I'll be all things to all people. He's speaking of he's going to relate the gospel and make that relatable to all people. But I can't have all the world's experiences. As much as a cosmopolitan would desire that, I can't be an Indian father to someone born in South Asia. That's not, I don't have those shared experiences. I can't even, half the time Isker says something, and I'm like, okay, that must be Minnesota, and I have no idea what you're talking about. And I exaggerate, but that common experience is just part of the human condition. And that's not a sinful part of the human condition. It's just, we are limited in time and space, right?
Yeah, exactly. And there's, there's nothing wrong with it. That's the thing. And I mean, Stephen gets into this, and we'll click play again here in a second, but I wanted to get CJ enough time to comment because he has to bounce early here. But you see this, that, I mean, these guys, and we'll pick on Scott Aniol because he brought it on himself by making the tweets. But if you were, Ron, you know people from Nigeria. I've known people from Nigeria, Igbo Christians, and if they said, I really care about my people, I care that they're being attacked, and the Muslims in Boko Haram are coming and raiding their churches and murdering them and killing them, I care about those people a lot.
Yeah.
If they said that, and they said in those terms, those are my people. Yeah. Scott Aniol wouldn't freak out about that. He wouldn't go to them and say, "Oh, what are you talking about? You don't have a city, right? Nigeria is not your country,
right?
It's Jerusalem above is your home. We have a heavenly city. Why do you care so much about that?"
Right. My daughter's best friend in high school is Igbo. Parents both first generation, born and raised in Nigeria. Both are doctors. One I know is a surgeon, maybe both. Very accomplished young lady, and just a terrific. And they go at least once every 2 years as a family and spend 6 weeks back home helping build things. And yet they are firmly, we are Americans. They wanted their daughter to go into the Naval Academy to give back as a thanks to the country. These are deeply, they are who their heritage is who they are, and yet they are loyal to the king or the state that they are in. I mean, it's just beautiful. Love these people. But of course not. I'd be like, well, of course you love your forefathers. Of course you love your heritage. It's a beautiful thing. And I don't know why that's hard to understand. And by the way, they're deeply faithful, Roman Catholic, but deeply, deeply faithful.
Well,
You do not miss church in that family.
Yeah, and so like if these guys say that, if you talk about any other people all over the world and they're Christians, right? And you say, "Oh, I really care about my people and the things that are happening to them. This is horrible." None of these guys would be like, "No, you can't care about that." But if you're an American, and if you're American, you care about heritage Americans and the things that are happening to them. And you care about your culture. You care. I mean, all of this is set. This is not in a vacuum, right? All of the things that Stephen is saying in this speech it's happening in the midst of a country that is being destroyed by an evil, wicked ideology, by gay race communism, and that is set about to destroy the heritage and history and people of America. And they freak out about. He was saying, no, we actually have a heritage, a culture, a people. We have this identity as Americans that we shouldn't forsake, that we shouldn't just throw away. And the reaction is, no, yeah, actually, yes, you should, because you're a Christian and you shouldn't care about those things, right? It is exactly backwards, right? It's insane, and so. And Stephen gets into why, so we're belaboring it maybe, but we'll let him we'll let him talk a little bit more because it's just brilliant.
Of immigrants can be nothing less than a hodgepodge of groups from somewhere other than the soil they currently depend on. America, in this conception, is the universal place, a space for everyone, a no place. It is good only because everything about it is derivative. Nothing is from here except the Native Americans or American Indians, the only people group granted true rootedness with that term native, or Latin for born or arisen. America is a land for people whose place lies on foreign shores, and to be truly American is a fight and even die to make this land a no place, a geographic space, an economic zone for any and all. There's no distinct American ethnicity, a distinct people and place, so we're told. America is the universal nation. It's rendered good not by settled hearts, nor by a culturally bound people. It requires that you affirm some universal abstract proposition, say that everyone gets to decide for himself the meaning of existence. But that's basically it. The deeper meaning of life, the sort of things that the heart owns, such as ethnic identity, cultural particularity, or a strong connection of people and place, must be supplied or rooted outside of America. Thus, the true Americans in New America are the hyphenated Americans. In a sense, these people are more complete human beings than the unhyphenated. Why? Because they have settled hearts with a people in a place, albeit a foreign place, while the unhyphenated have no place of their own. But we, the unhyphenated, those who trace our ancestry to Western Europe, whose roots extend beyond the Immigration Act of 1965 in Ellis Island, and which unite to this soil, we, the white Anglo-Saxon Protestants who founded, built, and died for and led this country for most of its history, we are not permitted in this new America to have a people or a place that is distinctly ours. There's no distant place that we call home. We have nowhere else to go. But this is our home. This is our native land. We are Native Americans, born of those who didn't immigrate, but who settled here. We are the sons and daughters of the people who settled this land. To describe America as a nation of immigrants, writes the...
So we could pause there. I think CJ, I think you maybe made this comment when we were watching this, that the point that we don't have anywhere to go back to, right? There is no, this is our home, right? There is no other place for us to go to where we belong. And that's such a crucial and important point, right? When discussing this topic of what is a heritage American, right? Because we want to say, okay, you had to have ancestors on the Mayflower, you had to have ancestors that fought in the War for Independence, you had to have ancestors that fought in the war between the states, right? That's oftentimes, especially on online on the right, that's, there's different demarcations, it's like here, or here. And I think that is probably the best one, right? That Stephen is elucidating here, where it's like, you don't have anywhere else to go back to, right? When they say you have to go back, right? Well, where do I go back to, right? I mean, for me, like, Germany has fallen, right? There's no going back there. It's not even the same place anymore, right? This is my home. We've been here.
I think that's a decent line of like, this is why I, people like, where do you draw the line? Like, people ask me that all the time. It's like, I actually, as criticized as I was for that Heritage American post, that post was actually an extremely broad post post. Like I put the line of demarcation in the post-war era. I put it in the transformation from Heritage America, where there was a collection of peoples with an identity, into America as a proposition, as an abstraction. And I put that basically in the 60s, right? With the reformulations of the immigration ratios and all of that stuff. So I put it way back there. Even that, people just lost their minds over that. But that was an extremely recent line of demarcation. But I think that's broadly consistent with Stevens here, which is that, you can define a heritage American as generally someone who has nowhere to go back to. And I think that's basically consistent with my own understanding of things. It's also, I think, really important to me, the way that Stephen, articulates the fact that we are in this really weird situation where the best Americans are those that are hyphenated, and the ones that aren't hyphenated, who just simply think of themselves as Americans, they're sort of like second class. They're not true Americans because they don't have this feeling of an immigrant anymore. There's this like cult of nomadism out there, where those who don't feel like nomads are like second tier Americans. Those who are obviously immigrants, those are like the prime species of Americans. And it's like everything's been flipped on its head.
Yeah. I think, that point is such a strong one. I mean, the in my state, you have, just last week, you had Ilhan Omar have the former prime minister of Somalia come and do a rally for Ilhan Omar. The whole rally was not in English. It was in, I think they speak Somali, their own language. And it was in their language. And the point that the former prime minister made was, right, what we're dealing with here is not a Minnesotan issue. It's not an American issue. It's a Somali issue, right? We care about Somalis, and that's it. And that's why she is in Washington, to represent us and our country.
Yeah.
And you think about that, and it's like, well, that, like, those aren't Americans, right? They maybe were born on this soil, on the magic dirt, but have some papers that say you're a citizen, but they're not Americans, right? They could go back today, and it would be a seamless transition for them to move back to Mogadishu, and that would be it. Like, they speak
the paradise of Mogadishu.
Yeah. I mean, no racism there. No bigotry there.
Keep going. I'll be right back. I'm sorry.
No, CJ's got to do important business while we're on here.
Well, don't you think that, to me, this seems like very, very similar to the signaling of the LGBTQ, whatever plus thing has changed the status seeking of the United States. You see the same thing in the cosmopolitan, the citizen of the world, that has a much higher status in the neoliberal worldview than the rooted citizen. That's kind of a yokel. That's a rube. What do they have to say? Oh, where have you lived? Well, I've lived in Dallas all my life, except for grad school. What's wrong with you?
Yeah. What kind of person goes to grad school?
That's right. Well, exactly. It
stepped
is,
into that one.
Yeah, that's right. It is the status seeking of having foreign identity, right, as a thing that boosts your status. That's very real. And on top of that, right, I mean, you just see all of these things where you see these foreign peoples where they don't have any. I mean, I think about this stuff in terms of, right, if the United States went to war, right, if we had a major conflict with China or Russia, right, which always seems like, that's the big boogeyman, that's the thing that's going to happen. They're going to do World War III any minute, which nothing ever happens, thankfully. But if that were to happen, right, you don't have a country with any identity of itself, right? None of these people like love America as America, love its history, its heritage, its people, and are willing to fight for it and die for it. Right.
Yeah. What are you fighting for and dying for?
Yeah.
I think Tucker was very good in Australia. Speaking of this being an idea, what no one dies for an idea. Even Christians don't die for, or shouldn't die for an idea. You die for Christ.
Yeah.
For a person, person, a real human.
We die for people, right? That's when you go fight and you die for your people. And if you don't have a people and you're not allowed to have a people, you're not going to want to go die for this. And this country that thinks you're dirt because you're a heritage American or you're white, and because you're a straight white Christian male, like you're at the bottom of the diversity totem pole, right? You have the lowest status of anybody, right? You're not going to sign up to go, make sure that they can have anal sex in Ukraine. Like you're not going to do that. And so I look at it that way.
Some might, but
some would. Some definitely will, and have. But regardless, there's no country, there's no identity to a country where you have this morale that you're going to go fight for, just like you would you look at something like the Second World War, and we've done episodes about that conflict and the historical revisionism that is a worthy cause to dig into. But you look at the people that actually fought in that war, right? The men that fought in that war, right? They actually had a country that they were fighting for, right? They had people who were fighting for.
That's right. They were afraid that the man in the high castle situation was a real possibility.
Yeah.
That you'd either be speaking Japanese or German. Yeah. Now, whether or not that was a real concern
threat
and all the other stuff, that's a topic for another podcast.
Yeah.
But
the actual men on the ground that
they
did
thought they were protecting their people and their way of life.
Yeah.
They were doing real politics with rifles.
Yeah. And it was the same thing. I mean, we could talk about Vietnam. We've talked a little bit when we talked about Kissinger after he died, about Vietnam. Right. But even that war, right? You talk to men that fought in Vietnam. They're fighting because they're fighting for America, and they are fighting communism because they didn't want the Soviets to take over the world and destroy our country. Right? They were very patriotic. They loved this country, these people here, and now that doesn't exist. There's this transition really from like September 11th till now, where the country's massively transformed. Probably, you could pinpoint like during the Obama administration, where it's just massively transformed into this post America, and there's just nothing. Like you think about September 11th and the outbreak of patriotism that people had shortly thereafter, that of course was abused by the Bush administration to go to war in Iraq. But that was a very real thing.
And to pass the Patriot Act.
Oh, all the horrible things. Yeah.
Yeah. And the TSA Act and
Yeah. But people had very real patriotism for their country, right? They felt that their country, their people had been attacked. And it's like, now, right, if something like that happened, right, would I feel even the same way? Right? Would I feel like, well, I mean, I think I would, but not to the same degree, right? Not in the exact same way.
Well, it would take a much closer proximity to bring out those same feelings, because the national identity has been destroyed.
Yeah.
Both culturally and these other ways, right?
Yeah. But I guess we don't have to worry about it because our citizenship is in heaven. Well, let's go back to Stephen here.
The great Harvard political scientist Samuel Huntington is to stretch a partial truth into a misleading falsehood and to ignore the central fact of America's beginning as a society of settlers. Yet the country that our ancestors built is no longer for us, for those whose hearts are settled here like us. It is not for those whose people are old stock Americans, whose people as a group were generated before, during, and soon after the American founding. We are not permitted to identify with this ancestry in any strong sense, at least. we cannot call ourselves heritage Americans. In a word, you cannot have a people like everyone else. And why is that? Because through them you could lay claim to this country. Indeed, the whole point of the nation of immigrants trope is to render the old stock American claim irrelevant and anti-American, and even to elevate the hyphenated over the unhyphenated as more American. To be sure, we are allowed to have a people to which we act for good, and this speaks directly to one main point of this talk. The people we are granted and unthinkingly accept is composed of all people, anyone and everyone who is here, who fits within the geographical boundaries. That is, our people has been universalized, leaving us nothing positive that is exclusively ours, unlike everyone else who retains full rights to a shared particular feeling of people and place. The sociologist Eric Kaufman calls this asymmetric multiculturalism. It refers to social arrangements in which every ethnic identity deserves celebration except any white ethnic identity. In my view, this is just what multiculturalism is. It is inherently asymmetrical by design. We should distinguish it from the idea of multi-ethnic, in which various ethnic groups exist under the same civil polity. There's nothing new in that. It's old. However, multiculturalism, as Paul Gottfried defines it, is when the state glorifies differences from the way of life associated with the once majority population. It hands out rewards to those who personify the desired differences while taking away cultural recognition and even political rights from those who do not. As defined here, multiculturalism is the official policy of the American regime. It is reflected in everything from the protected classes and application of civil rights law to the accepted societal rhetoric around race and ethnicity. Everyone but white people can self-consciously and publicly have a bounded people and place for whom they openly act for their good. Now, white people in the Western world, and this is crucial.
That right there is crucial. Like, this is what you were alluding to earlier, Andrew, with Scott. And if there was, a Nigerian situation where they talked about themselves as belonging to a people, it is completely normalized for them to refer to themselves as having a people and belonging to someone, as being representative not only of themselves, but of a heritage in something that's beyond just themselves as an individual. But the only people to whom this is denied are heritage Americans. We're the ones that get scolded for talking about our people. We're the ones that get lectured if we do say that we want our country back or our nation back. We're the ones that are told that our identity is in heaven, but no one else is. And I think Stephen's exactly right here, and recognizing the fact that all of this has been flipped on its head, so that those who have been here the longest, whose roots are more deeply saturated than others, they're the ones that are no longer allowed to identify with them. And, this is not even just a problem on the left. This is a problem with the liberal center. This is a problem with regime thinking, regime evangelicalism, the academy, the corporations, the entertainment industry. All of this echoes this overall zeitgeist.
Yeah, I mean, I made this point, yesterday, because I read Scott Greer's article about the movie The Patriot. I don't know if you guys saw that article. He's right. Like, there are problems with that movie. It's very, very much 2000s movie and full of all of these liberal tropes. That's why the movie was able to be made even then. And so I'd recommend that article for anybody to read it. I like the movie. I mean, it's the action scenes. It's a Mel Gibson movie, so of course it's still really good. And we would always watch it, every July 4th. It's a fun little tradition to have. But you thinking about that, I'm like, well, maybe there's another, movie about the war for independence that we could watch instead. And I went, digging in, looking, and there's basically nothing, right? There's almost no movies made, and certainly in the last 20 or 30 years, other than The Patriot, about the American war for independence, right? And this is something where it's like, this is the founding myth. Right, a true myth, right? But the founding myth of America, of heritage America, is the war for independence. I mean, you could have movies. You could have a $200 million movie about Bunker Hill, or Lexington and Concord, or Valley Forge, or all sorts of different things in that era, right? You could make movie after movie after movie. I mean, so much heroism and courage and bravery that took place, and they don't make any of them. But what they do make movies of every other year is movies about the Holocaust and World War II. Yeah. And again, like, there's unlimited budget for those movies. And the reason why, of course, is because, right, that's the founding myth of heritage America, right? We don't care about those things. The founding myth of post America, right, is World War II and the Holocaust. So that's why they make those movies.
Right. I'm surprised we haven't gotten more movies about African decolonial, decolonization.
Yeah.
But that gets into the fun CIA world.
There was the Good Shepherd with Matt Damon. Kind of got into it a little bit.
Yeah, Quiet American, even though that's
Yeah.
in Southeast Asia, similar kind of thing. I was really struck when Stephen's speaking here that sociological universalism is every bit as ineffective as theological universalism. It's one and the same, honestly, because as Schmidt pointed out, you can't really separate theology, sociology, and politics. That's a three-sided, unity, basically.
You almost say coin, but yeah.
Well,
yes.
Maybe we're talking about quantum spin. I can have three sides.
Yeah, that's right. But no, you're right. The three are intertwined for sure. You got to bounce, DJ?
I apologize. Yeah, it's a very busy time for me, so I'm going to leave, and I'll see you next week.
Before you go, this Friday, we're gonna be in Texas together. We're gonna be in Ron's territory.
Yeah, that's true. I got 2 speeches tonight.
Yeah, so
you coming to the mothership?
Yes. Yes. You can make Glenn Beck jokes at Andrew.
That's right. I'll get the Texas Sun. I'll be bright.
It'll be Glenn Beck and Mike Ditka hosting the next podcast.
But yeah, next Friday I think we'll record. Maybe we'll have special guests like Stephen Wolfe himself, and maybe Paul Gottfried will get to join us. I don't know. You got to arrange that, CJ. But next Friday we'll be live and in person.
Yeah, I'll see both of you there then.
Awesome. Well, thanks, CJ.
See you, CJ.
Ron and I are going to take us home, though.
Yeah, man. Have fun. Okay. Talk to you soon.
See you, bud.
All right. We'll continue on with Stephen here because he goes on and I mean gives even more detail about multiculturalism and as the official policy that this is what the regime wants. Before you get it even into like demographic replacement and a discussion about those things, which is real and true and obvious, and at this point anyone who denies it is just a liar. But before that, it is cultural replacement that precedes that, where the culture of heritage America is destroyed first before that. So he gets into it here.
Are their own in-groups out-group. I'll say it again. White people in the Western world are their own in-groups out-group. So what do I mean by this? First, an in-group consists of those to whom you direct your affections, your thoughts, your principal actions for their good. And an out-group may or may not be hostile, but it consists of those to whom you do not ordinarily direct your affections, thoughts, and principal actions. Now, the in-group for white people, as I said earlier, is composed of all people. If you are human, you are in. Our in-group is not white or Anglo-Saxon. It extends to all. So keep that in mind. It's a very important point. But we must begin to recognize that we are the out-group of that in-group. We are the hostile out-group. We are our history's oppressor in this schema. The old stock Americans, the old stock Americans, the group from which all others are, the old stock Americans are the group from which all others had to overcome to gain their freedom. We are our own nation's villain. Thus our in-group, which again is universalized, is full of protected classes. And they need protection from whom? Why are they protected? They're protected from white people, or more specifically, from the white heterosexual male. Now, seeking the good of our in-group, which again extends to all people, it's not just whites alone, is precisely found in villainizing ourselves. It effectively makes us the out-group of our own in-group. We are the villain of our own in-group. Thus, we ourselves are the obstacle to our in-group's flourishing. And the entire American regime and all acceptable public discourse follows and confirms this. It follows that we as a group cannot stand up for ourselves. Take even a recent positive development in opposing anti-white discrimination in university admissions. University admissions, by the way, when they seek to create a diverse student body, must discriminate against white applicants, because whites are second only to Asians in grades and test scores. Almost every diversity program must, at least in effect, harm white people. Diversity, whenever you see diversity, it is code for fewer white heterosexual men, every single time. It's the diversity is the euphemism for fewer white heterosexual men. Every time you see it, you think fewer white men. Maximal diversity is the absence of the straight white man. Given the sheer number of white applicants for college admissions, whites are the most discriminated against in college admissions. But how do we respond? If we respond at all, how do we argue against this discrimination? Not by referring to discrimination against us. Indeed, we cannot see ourselves as a distinct group, so we can't be a protected class. What do we do instead? We point to discrimination against Asians. In recent Supreme Court cases, this is precisely what has happened. There were cases brought against UNC Chapel Hill and Harvard, and they were brought on behalf of Asian Americans rather than whites. This despite the fact that whites are, as I said, far more subject to discrimination. Jeremy Carl, the author of the book, The Unprotected Class, which I highly recommend you all buy, the Unprotected Class, he writes this, that Asian American students would be seen as a more appealing client to a Supreme Court with no Asian American, but stocked with a majority of white conservatives, is a very revealing window into our racial politics today. Now, the media took notice of these kind of racial dynamics, and one professor, cited by Jeremy Carl, said that all research shows it's Americans who would benefit the most, ruling against factoring race in admissions. Now, of course, the professor, as we might expect, was saying this is bad because when white Americans benefit from policies, that is bad. Anything that benefits whites is bad, even if it comes from treating everyone equally. Indeed, once you're aware of this rhetoric, this rhetorical move, that basically any policy that benefits whites is bad, you'll end up seeing this everywhere. It's
fact check true. You do end up seeing it everywhere, right? And it's super black pilling to see once you start seeing it, but it's real. It's real, and it is all over the place, and it's undeniable, right? And people will act like you are a very bad person if you see it, if you talk about it, right? And that's starting to change a little bit. You have guys like Chris Rufo and Jeremy Carl, who Stephen referenced, that are calling
Jeremy's
attention to
great.
these things.
I had lunch with Jeremy about a month ago, and he's just fantastic on this issue and very gracious. This is not some kind of mean-spirited, hate-filled guy. No. This is a guy who wants things better for everyone.
Yeah,
but realizes that having a Girardian scapegoat class isn't good for anyone.
No, and Stephen brings this up, that the point that is made is, if you just have equal weights and measures, right? If you just say, all right, to get into our school, our elite school, you need to have a certain level on the SATs, right? That's for everybody, right? You got to get, I don't even know, I never took the SAT. I took the ACT, but if it's like, 34, 35 on the ACT to get into Harvard, plus you need to have a certain number of extracurriculars and all of this kind of stuff. Like, we want the very, very best. And, it ends up benefiting white people if you do that. That's bad, right? Even though, what are you doing? You're saying, we only want the very best in this school, and we're going to take from the very best. And if we take the very best, and those are the people that are trained to be the elite class, right? We want the elite class to be the best and the brightest. And
it's just what's best.
We can't have that.
It's what's best for everyone. I mean, the biblical standard is equal scales.
Yeah.
Because that's what ends up being best for everyone. That creates the right set of incentives. That's what's just. That's what's righteous. And so the idea that you can, I mean, this is all, kindergarten kind of stuff, but equality of outcome is simply impossible. And the only, and we get to, again, this, you end up destroying the mechanism that makes up for the inequality of outcome, which is personal relationships. In other words, that we are told to be, in the parable of the Good Samaritan, in the two maxims of the law, we're told to love our neighbor, and that's not some theoretical person far away. Better a neighbor who is near than a brother who is far away, the scripture says. And so through providence, through whatever, we're going to encounter people that we're called to love and take care of and all these kind of things. But that's a very personal thing. This idea that we can fix all these issues by putting our thumb on the scale at a macro level, you're destroying the very mechanism that's supposed to fix it at a micro level. And it kills me. It absolutely kills me. Jeremy's so good on please go out, get his book, read it. It's not super, give it to friends. It's easily, it's very normie accessible.
Oh, very much so. And he very much is just the facts, right?
Right.
It's very passionate. It's not histrionic in any way.
No.
Here is all the facts, and take of it what you will. And
that's right.
and so yeah, the point that
this isn't Le Griff de Lion kind of material.
yeah, like this point here by Nehemiah 20:24, right? Stephen's point about Americans being the outgroup of America is excellent. That he's absolutely right. Like when you see that framing, and you understand that we are our own in groups out group, right? That everything is completely inverted, right?
That's right.
The people that you would have normal, natural affection for, your actual neighbors, the people around you that you care about, the people from your own country and your own communities, those are the bad. Those are the other, right? Those are the people that, right? And in terms of like people get bent out of shape when you talk about in group and out group, right? They think that it means, right, in group is our tribe and the other group is the enemy people, and that isn't what it means, right? It means right, these are just the other people. These are the people far away. These are the people near to us that we should care for and have a high regard for and care more about their well-being because they are near to us. And it gets inverted because the people that are near to us, the people that we should have a duty to and a responsibility for, those are treated as the people far away that we don't care about, right? Who is our neighbor? Not the people around you, apparently.
Right. And it's a very strange sociological fact that's found basically here and maybe in parts of Great Britain, this outgroup favoritism, which I mean, you can go, you don't have to listen to Andrew and me. You can online, the National Institutes of Health, all the way back in 2014, had a study on the preference for high status predicts implicit outgroup bias. In other words, it became status seeking, what we mentioned earlier about this cosmopolitan citizen of the world, multicultural view, was that the outgroup is somehow, that's a higher status seeking than my own in-group. Yeah. And this is a real problem because you can't live this way. Yeah. Eventually you run out of other people's money. You run out of people. You run out of support group. Yeah. These two things are tied. You try to make government the supplanter of these things that we are biasing against on a micro sociological and microeconomic level. In other words, I can't love the people that are just around me. I have to leapfrog them in preference. Well, then the government has to come and make up for all those preferences that you just leapfrogged. It's completely destructive to any civilization.
Yeah. This quote from Faithful Faustin: "The more I love humanity in general, the less I love man in particular," from Dostoevsky.
Ooh, and which work is that from? Is that from Underground Man?
I don't know. We'll have to.
He needs to. Faithful Faustin needs to bounce
follow up
back
on that.
on.
Yeah, give us the source. But
that's really good.
It is very good. Yeah, it's really good. And I mean, it's just like everybody wants to save the world, but nobody wants to help mom with the dishes. You know that
everybody wants to go to heaven. Nobody wants to die.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing. Like I saw this even when I was in college. I remember, being in college and in my like Campus Crusade evangelical group that I was in. I remember commenting one time. Yeah. Well, it's always Campus Crusade to me. And I remember commenting one time, like I think I saw, an ambulance or a fire truck going down the road and saying to my, friends there, like anytime I see that and it's going in the direction of like my parents' house or to the direction of someone I know, right, I immediately start praying, right? Oh Lord, I hope my parents are okay. Please make sure they're okay. Something like that. You begin to have concern for your loved ones. Right. And I remember people chiding me for that. They're like, well, the ambulance is going somewhere and somebody's hurt. Why are you praying about only the people you care about and not just praying in general that the person is okay?
Because there are no general people. There are only specific people.
Yeah. I remember I was being shamed over having concern about family and friends being hurt. And it's like, because I care about those people more than some random stranger, I guess. Is that wrong of me? Apparently it was,
Right.
but it's that same ethos, right? It's the same ethos that you just need to care about everybody generally and not about anyone in particular. And
That's
it's destructive.
so
Yeah.
it is destructive. It's economically, it's sociologically destructive. It destroys the churches. It's the it's the it's the idea that I'm going to go on a short-term mission trip that is somehow more beneficial than something that's extremely local.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
again,
that's
I'm not knocking short-term mission trips because they have
Well,
other benefits of teaching
yeah, maybe
people that we're blessed and all that kind of stuff. But
yeah,
the
I don't
idea that
know.
we're
I don't
gonna
know. You're not
salve
going to
our-
knock it, Ron. I will knock it right now. I'll interrupt
Well,
you.
I
I'm gonna
kind of
knock
want
it,
to.
I'm going to
I
knock
might
it.
have friends who are watching
Yeah.
this,
Yeah,
but
well, I'll save you from getting in trouble with them, and I'll just say we have 80 to 90,000 people in America who are dying of fentanyl overdoses in Middle America. Right,
That's
all of
right.
these communities across throughout Middle America, their communities are destroyed, and it's like instead of building an orphanage in Haiti that is going to get burned down by gangs in 6 months, you should go to Kentucky and do a short-term mission in some tiny little go to West Virginia and do something there for those people, right?
Well,
And
what
you're
I-
still and the same
Right.
benefit that you say is like, oh, look at all the poor people and look how blessed we are of all the things God has given us. Well, you could do that in a town in West Virginia where all they have is a Dollar General, right? You could do that there. So we need to we have so many problems here, and we care about these people far off, right? We don't care about our neighbors. We don't care about the. I mean, even in your own city of Dallas, right? There's so many problems that could be helped by the church, and they're not, because we would rather go to Mexico or Haiti or Central America.
Why not? I mean, think of. I mean, this is going to sound radical, but why not? Why not have uh, uh, basically deputized lay security groups go to high crime areas?
This is
Because-
this is the thing I've talked about before. Like I actually tweeted about this. I tweeted at Eric Prince about this. I'm like,
because
train
you
people
want
to do this stuff. Yeah.
if you want to teach people the value of high trust, safe communities. I mean, if 5 of us, I mean, I'm aging out a little bit of this stuff, but I'm not too old. I mean, if a group of 5 or 10 guys patrolled a neighborhood just to make sure that folks could sit on their porch and have peace,
Yeah.
and have community rather than being locked behind 5 locks in some of these areas. The ghettoization of some of these areas in the guise of, well, we can't police that's it's racist to police some of these areas and all that. No, you're making the problem worse. You're hating those people.
Yeah.
You are hating them. But the same thing happens, and it's not far from home. Or anyway, there are radical things, and by radical I don't mean revolutionary. I just mean not acceptable now.
Yeah.
Things we could be doing as churches and as civic community groups to really make an impact on your local, especially in urban areas.
Yeah.
And
Well,
it's not, it's not just about food and that kind of thing.
Housing
I mean,
and things
safety.
like that. Yeah.
Basic safety.
Basic security could be provided. And well, and even beyond that, like whenever I see these types, I mean, we talked about this in the last couple of weeks with like Neil Shenby and bringing up the parable of the Good Samaritan. And I mean, I was thinking about that more throughout the week, and it's like you have, 80,000 people dying of fentanyl in America, right? So you can imagine somebody overdosing on fentanyl by the side of the road, right? Some redneck hillbilly, somebody these people don't care about at all, right?
Right.
Who's dying on the side of the road, and the regime evangelical is saying, nope, they're driving their BMW right by him, saying, I got to get to my short-term mission trip in Haiti. I can't stop and help this guy, right? That's the modern
Yeah.
analog to the parable of the Good Samaritan, right? We have people dying and their countries are destroyed. Their country is destroyed. Their way of life has been destroyed. Everything that they once had, all of the industry has been shipped overseas. So there's nothing for them to do in their towns, right? All of these things, it's economically depressed. It's so bad. And we don't care about that at all because we got to care about the world, right? We got to care about the everybody in the world. That's our in group, right? These
That's right.
people, they're the out group. They're the people we don't like.
Did you happen to hear the latest Unraveling episode with Jocko and Daryl?
I haven't watched it yet. No.
It's typical Jocko and Daryl. It's fantastic, but it's about deinstitutionalization and what that's done and the history of institutions and why we got to that point and everything. I mean, typically historically fantastic and willing to tackle very tough and uncomfortable issues. Highly recommended. But anyway, I was just a couple of weeks ago. Well, we have I live in a very nice neighborhood. It's not the perfect nicest in Dallas, but it's a very nice neighborhood. God has blessed me. And but there is a overpass. White Rock Creek runs right near my house. And there's an overpass there that has where there has been some homeless folks, and in particular one like a Gadarene demoniac kind of guy who's off and on been under there, and occasionally he'll come do something crazy enough that the police pick him up and then he gets out. Well, the other day he assaulted someone and put him in the hospital. And we have, and that's beyond the level of citizen, you could get really hurt if you tried to approach this guy. Yeah. But we don't have good answers for, I mean, the answers are there, but we're unwilling politically to do them. We'd rather spend, how many billion are we up to in Ukraine now, Andrew?
600, 700 billion, something.
So how many institutional, for folks who literally can't take care of themselves because just mentally, for whatever reason, either through drugs or just genetically, whatever the reason is,
mental illness, drug abuse,
all these things that are very real. How many how many institutional beds could we have funded with the money we've spent on Ukraine to take care of these people?
Or even just the money that we spend on homelessness, right? I mean, you probably saw the study. What was it in Denver? Or I want to say, where they gave $1,000 to each homeless person, and they did
a lot of good.
It was like an A/B test. They gave 50 to some, 1,000 to others, and the number of people who were no longer homeless after this program for each of them was exactly the same.
Well, I was going to say you just incentivized homelessness.
Yeah, and it's like the amount of money that is spent on the homeless, and the problem doesn't get any better. I mean, we had answers for these things, right? We had. I mean, we had institutions. No, of course they weren't. The world isn't perfect.
That's exactly right. And there was some things are always, semper reformanda. You can always be making things better. That's great.
We decided to make it a lot worse.
We sure did. Yeah. We put hell on earth for these folks. And it's so awful. And we're doing the same thing right now in communities that we are unwilling to police, that we are unwilling to expect order from. And that's all civilization is rightly ordered, and where those who are evil are in rightful fear of the magistrate. That's civilization.
And I mean, you see this with, I mean, some of the people in the comments have pointed this out, Logan here, talking about, the neighborhoods
I need to go over the comments.
Yeah, the neighborhoods in Dallas, right? He says, not to mention, right, right? Not to mention that these areas actually want more policing. I remember some awkward stats out of Dallas where he lives as well, where Black neighborhood surveys showed that they wanted more police presence. And that's the thing, like the 1996, is it 96 crime bill, that they want to attack Biden over and saying how horrible it was and how terrible it was extremely popular, not just among the population, not just among white people, but it was extremely popular with Blacks because they actually live in those neighborhoods where there's crime all over the place and they want it dealt with, right? They don't want the crime, right? And they have to live with it. And we can wax poetic and pretend that we're such wonderful, anti-racist people. We want to deal with the prison population and how evil and racist it is. And all it actually does is ends up harming actual Black people that want to live in peace. Right?
If you if you want to fix a great way to fix some of the prison issues, although that's a great debate to have. Do we have too many or too few people in prison? That's a fun debate to have. But if you want to, that's exactly right, Andrew. The answer is yes. And if you want to make it more just, then have well-policed, well-ordered urban areas, because then the folks who end up in the pokey are those who are willing to go completely against the real boots on the ground civil order. And what we're doing now is incentivizing disorder and chaos. Yeah. And there is no way you can excuse that as a Christian or even one. Heck, you don't even have to be a Christian. Anyone who's you can be a complete pagan Platonist. So
anyone who's sane should want these things because you don't want to live in crime and disorder, right? You don't want you don't want to be paying for your gas at the gas pump and get your car stolen and get shot. Right? You don't want.
That's right.
I don't want it when I'm in the Twin Cities and I have to stop and get gas or run out of gas there and have to have my head on a swivel, right, the entire time I'm pumping the gas. Right? I don't want that. Right? I don't think anybody wants that.
It's horrible. Right. And to circle back to what we were talking about, this outgroup preferencing, because it leapfrogs the neighbor, destroys the incentives for a civil, the civil order close, because that it's caring about your neighbor that drives that incentivizes a well-ordered society. And so if you outgroup preference, this weird thing that only happens with liberals here, and so, like I said, somewhere in some places in the UK, you hijack, you short circuit those incentives which keep a well-ordered society, the part that you can control, which you vote for your police chief, you vote for your local courts, you vote for your police budgeting. So you want to make your city a disaster. Prefer people other than your neighbors. Yeah. And you're going to get it.
Yeah. Well, I know I only have a little bit more time here.
Oh, sorry. Sure we've been doing too much talking, Andrew.
No, we have. I think CJ and I plan to do this over 2 or 3 episodes anyway. So sorry to everyone that wanted to get through the whole thing in one episode. That's not going to happen. But I know CJ wanted to talk about this too, and I'm throwing this at you, spur of the moment, because CJ was like, I got so much to do. I only can be on for half an hour. I'm like, well, let's see if Ron can join us. But we wanted to. I mean, it was a pretty interesting week, and you brought up the UK, in relation to this topic that we've been talking about. But incredible things are happening in Great Britain. So there was a parliamentary election.
There was historic in its sweeping,
very historic,
of the absolutely cowardly Tories.
Yes. So let's talk about that for just a few moments before we have to both get going. Just looking back to 2016, right? You have this massive sea change that took place with Brexit. And the heritage actual British people, we didn't even call them we won't use the same terminology, but actual British people said, hey, I don't actually want this. I want to have my own country. That would be nice. And Brexit comes in, the Tories sweep into power, and
Mhm.
their mandate to govern was based around enforcing Brexit, right? Enforcing immigration law, not being
Mhm.
inundated with millions of people from the third world.
Mhm.
And what did the Tories do?
They
Absolutely nothing.
nothing. You had to
Nothing at
have,
all.
yeah, a bunch of videos from daily videos from Nigel Farage watching the people pouring in over the English Channel,
Yeah.
um, straight from, you know, Northern Africa and other places. It's this
Yeah,
isn't a
not just yeah,
yeah, yeah.
everywhere.
I really am not. For those who don't know me, this isn't a racialist thing for me. This is a who are the people that I
Yeah.
choose to love who are near to me,
Yeah.
and who God has placed in my life, and say it's like my family. I didn't
Mhm.
choose them,
Yeah.
except well, my wife, but
Yeah, you
otherwise,
chose her.
you know,
Yeah.
chose
Yeah.
her. Well, she kind of chose me, but
Yeah. Well, yeah, no, don't sell yourself short, Ron.
yeah.
But that's the thing is, and I like to focus on Europe, Great Britain and the European countries, because you see the same things play out that Stephen is talking about. That they're the British people's own outgroup is themselves. Same thing,
Mm-hmm.
same dynamic at play,
Mm-hmm.
and like they have a very coherent identity as a people, right? You're either British
Well,
or you're not,
yeah.
right?
Well, traditionally, you did. I mean, I honeymooned in London for a little bit and was in a wedding. I spent a little time in London in the old pre, you know, back in the old days. I mean, when dinosaurs roamed the earth, and there was very much a a a London identity,
Oh yeah.
very much, and then a greater English identity, and then kind of a UK identity, although that's
Mhm.
debatable.
I mean, you have
Um,
Wales, you have Scotland, you have the different
that's right,
regions in
and
England.
those
Yeah.
people, kind of their own states.
Mhm.
But I hear I haven't been since London's really been transformed, but I hear it feels completely different, and I love the fact I felt more comfortable when we honeymooned in London. I felt more comfortable there than when I would travel to, say, Philadelphia or Baltimore,
Mhm.
because it was so high trust, and there were people of color in London. Again, this isn't what it's about, but it was very much a unified identity, and people, you
Yeah.
talk to the great stories from the cabbies, and it was just a thing, everybody was kind of
Mhm.
rowing the boat together, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I hear that's really been destroyed, which is
Yeah.
sad to me. It's really sad to me.
Yeah. The entire national identity has been destroyed. You aren't allowed to think of yourself as British, right? Even
Right.
though, and it's the same dynamics. It's like, well, it's because of the legacy of colonialism, right? That you did all of this evil, horrible colonization of
Y-
Africa and India, that now you need to pay, right? That's the general idea that is
right.
going on there. Right? You have this great
Right.
national sin here in America. It's slavery, right? You did slavery here, so you did have infinity third world people coming to your country. In the UK, it's over colonization, and it's mind blowing to me that this idea, like, you can't have an identity as British, right? We can't say, we are British. This is our country. This is our people. The same thing, right? The same thing in France and in Germany, right? You get put into prison if you sing Ausländer raus, right? We've talked about that a few times already, right? They will throw you in jail for that. I mean, it is
Right.
nuts. It's insane, right? That you can't say Germany is our country. We're Germans,
Isn't
right?
that crazy?
France is our
I mean,
country. We're French.
that story blew me away, the German story in particular. And
Or the
what
MP
what
who was jailed for posting migrant crime stats, right? From the government website,
you
right?
know, it's a the whole colonialization issue is interesting, and people, of course, are of two minds, because we have one particular colonial reality that we all have to bow to, or we get in real trouble. That's very much an ethno state, regardless of what people on Twitter argue against, and you know, in a certain part of the Mediterranean, but and that's okay.
Yeah.
And yet the British bringing a common language, courts, a stable currency, an expectation of no human sacrifice, and all these other things around the world was somehow bad. And the trade for that was some raw materials. Seems like a pretty good trade.
It's pretty fair.
Seems like a pretty good trade.
Yeah.
But that's all bad. Yet our entire foreign policy, not our entire, I don't want to overstate. I do want to be fair.
A major part of our foreign policy.
A major part of our foreign policy is built around a particular colonial outlook on the far eastern Mediterranean, and that's somehow okay because it brings those very things, maybe not common language, but it brings all those other things supposedly to that area. And I just have a hard time with I know on the right we're not supposed to point out leftist hypocrisy, that is a weak argument. Yeah. But I do find it interesting. I do find it interesting that somehow one of those colonial realities is good, and yet all these others are bad. Yeah. Where would, for instance, where would Puerto Rico be if after the Spanish American War we just left it to its own deal? Where would it be? I mean,
would they be better off or worse? Yeah.
Would they be better off or worse off?
Yeah.
The Philippines, would they be better off or worse off than they are now? I mean, Duarte's not some great guy, but you just have to play this out and really think through it. And no, we're not willing to do that. But what we are willing to do is basically create the same realities within our own country, and for sure not be willing to deal with it. Anyway, I don't know. I hijacked what you're.
No, I think you're. I mean, along that point, I don't think that imperialism as a concept is evil, right? I don't think it is. Like if you have these countries, because part of the point is you go to, this third world country that does not have, it's this random tribal structure, and they do all sorts, they practice animism and human sacrifice and horrible practices. And you clean all of that up. You create a stable, orderly society with law and justice and so forth. And you make it economically productive, where economic productivity did not exist before. And all of those people are blessed by that.
That's right.
Massively blessed by that. And you remove it. I mean, you look at Africa now, in post-colonial Africa, and it is a mess, right? It is nothing but civil wars and coups, and nobody, even if you wanted to build a business somewhere in sub-Saharan Africa today, you couldn't do it because, right, a new government is going to come. There's going to be a new junta in charge, and they're going to take everything from you. So you're disincentivized from doing anything productive whatsoever. And
I had experience with this. My last private equity firm I was with, doing we had a big business in Nigeria, and that business ended up basically folding because we couldn't get paid from the government because they just reneged on a bunch of contracts. Yeah. And, Nigeria is an interesting deal. We spoke about the Igbo earlier. The Igbo, who are incredibly capable people. I mean, kind of freakishly so. Very, very capable. Outperformance on every metric, darn near. Basically tried to take over the country, and everybody else rose up against them. And so now they're discriminated against because of that. It's a weird human nature. Sin nature is just messed up.
Yeah.
ultimately, this is what this all comes down to.
Yeah.
Is a desire to do what is right in our own eyes
Mm-hmm.
and value weird idols instead of just submitting to what's clear in the Bible. And part of just like what we were talking about, and what's clear command of Scripture is love your neighbor.
Yeah, and this point by Logan here is good, right? It's interesting that imperialism is such an evil word now, while the merits of multiculturalism are constantly extolled. Some of the most stable multicultural societies in history were empires, and
Absolutely.
that's a point that Stephen made. He would make the distinction that they weren't multicultural; they were multi-ethnic, right?
That's right.
That term is very important.
Well, look at the Russian Empire. The Russian Empire is 17 different ethnic groups. Okay. But you have to have the only way those ethnic groups can coexist is via empire. It's not going to be some democratic impulse.
Yeah, it's not multicultural because the dominant ethnic group, the Russians, are the ones at the very top, and everyone else is joined in with them. Right? If it was multicultural, if it was multicultural, they would be consuming the dominant ethnic group. You would have if Russia was like us. It would be ethnic Russians would be at the very bottom of everything. They would be the unprotected class. And
that's right.
And
this is the same in China with the Han.
Yeah.
The Han rule over, gosh, that's a lot of different ethnic groups. I lose track.
Yeah.
My godkids are Chinese, and I should know how many different non-Han ethnic groups there are. I know there are a lot, but that's a Han ruled empire for all practical purposes. The British Empire was ruled by the native Londoners.
Yeah.
The Southern Englanders ran that deal. And right now, whether we like it or not, we're the U.S. the global American empire is run by New Englanders, basically.
It was. I don't know if it is anymore.
It
was.
Now
there's a different ruling class, but
that's true.
That's the thing. And even the point, but Singapore, right? Singapore, that's multi-ethnic, but there is very firm, hard authority at the very top that is able to make all the groups cohere and make it work.
Their problem is that it's an IQ shredder. So they're going to be, they can't, they're at like 0.7 on their fertility rate. So they're in real trouble for other reasons. And we got to fix that as a society, but you can only do that in a Christian framework. Only Christianity says be fruitful and multiply as a chiastic bookend to the order given to the state. If you shed man's blood, by man shall your blood be shed. If you read that passage, it's be fruitful and multiply and subdue the earth. Here in the middle, here's the institution of the state, and then be fruitful and multiply. So only Christianity offers the answer to this issue.
Yeah, like so. For instance, Japan with their very low TFR, right? That's what they need, right? They don't need immigration, right? They need
but they're leaning on the immigration thing harder than they ever have right now. I think, and it's not very much compared to how many people, but 400,000 people in the last 12 months, have been, which is unheard of.
It's a lot for Japan.
Yeah.
This point from Logan. 20th century global American empire. 100% brought into being by New England WASPs. Absolutely. I agree. But the New Dealers, right? That's the transition where it's the handoff from the New England WASPs to the Ellis Islanders, right? That's when you had that transition in who the ruling class is. And you see that.
By proxy, obviously FDR was about as blue blood.
He was as waspy as it came, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, his many of the people in his cabinet and in his administration were from the Ellis Island stock, and so then you see that transition take place to now, right? And this is a thing. Josiah Lippincott was banned. We've had Josiah on before. Was banned permanently forever, even under Elon Twitter, from ever coming back. And the thing that got him was he pointed out that Biden's entire cabinet, not one single white Anglo-Saxon Protestant in his entire cabinet, which is crazy, right? That was the elite, the ruling class of America. Now they're gone. from power completely.
And I'm about to turn into a pumpkin, Andrew, but
a red pumpkin.
Thank you, but not Glenn Beck.
That's right.
I don't have a problem with Glenn Beck. I got a lot of friends who work.
I like Glenn.
Yeah,
I disagree with him. Obviously,
I don't want people
on
to
some
think
things.
that I'm the Quokka looking guy.
We love Glenn here. Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah.
If he wants to add Contramundum to the blaze, he can talk to my people.
Yeah, we could probably make that happen. Call Matt. I probably shouldn't say that on a public deal.
That's okay.
Anyway,
that's okay.
So no one knows who we're talking about.
No.
Okay, so I got to run, but yeah, Daryl Cooper, Martyr Maid, has not to mention him twice in one deal, but he's spoken on this quite effectively that we're schizophrenic with all this stuff. And chaos of mind leads to chaos of civilization, and chaos of heart leads to chaos of civilization, and chaos is no civilization at all. And that's hell for people. And we don't want that. And again, we don't want what's just, but the one caveat I'll give, and I don't, that I'll guard, I want people to guard themselves against, is us desiring this political action as a people is for the betterment of everyone. It's not just for the betterment of folks who look like
our particular ethnic
as salt and pepper here. You're salt, I'm red pepper. No, it's better for everyone, again, because it doesn't hijack that love of neighbor, that in-group bias that is necessary for civilization.
Yeah, you could have, right, because America, I mean, especially now, right, the toothpaste is out of the tube after the 20th century, right? You're going to have different ethnic groups in America.
Yep.
Even if we have mass deportations, even if Ilhan Omar and all her people go back, right, there's still going to be, multiple ethnic groups in America. But if you have like we talked about with Russia or other multi-ethnic societies, or if you have the dominant ethnic group and they understand their place in the society, right? They don't actually trample the little guy, right? They care for the group as a whole, right? That's right. That's how you have order and stability within a society. This last point, but I don't want to keep you too long, Rob. This point is I can't not say it. Right. Logan points out that not to distract. This is all we do is get distracted. Japanese emperor converting to Protestantism would be unbelievably based. Christian prince. Here's the thing. Emperor Hirohito, after World War II, went to Douglas MacArthur and said, "All right, America, you're a Protestant country. You've defeated us. The proper thing for me to do is convert to Christianity."
That's right.
And Douglas MacArthur said no. He said no.
What? It blows my mind. This is what, look, goes back to Charlemagne, right?
Yeah.
Marching people through the river.
Yes, Logan, it happened. It happened. He was going to convert. And
offered to
MacArthur
do it.
Said no. He
and
said that would bring about
an example for his people that it would become a Christian nation.
Yeah. MacArthur. That's right.
Yeah. He was a mixed bag. He did some great things, but
he did. But I see that. I think imagine how differently history would have played out for their people if the emperor had converted. Right?
Well, think about our political and leadership at that point. We bombed the largest church in Asia with the second bomb. The Nagasaki bomb, the aim point was the largest church in Asia that we bombed.
And the largest Catholic community in all of Japan was Nagasaki.
Yeah. Well, in all of largest
all of Asia. Yeah.
All of Asia. And then they offer to convert to Christianity and we say no.
Nah, I mean, we don't want that.
It needs to. There's something demonic going on there. And with that, I gotta.
All right, me too.
Out.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for watching and listening. If you enjoy the conversation, we'll be back next Friday, live and in person. And then the week after that, Lord willing, we will continue going through Stephen's talk and commenting on it. But if you enjoy the show, again, like and subscribe and go to contramundumpodcast.com. If you really like the show and want to throw some money at us on the shill stack, we would love that. That would be great. Yes, absolutely. Please do that. But again, thank you so much for watching and listening, and we will see you next time.